Welcome to GTL, Growing Tomorrow's Leaders. This month, our speaker is President of DCS, Matt Ferguson.
What I'm going to talk about is contentment, even with ambition, even with a desire for growth, even with a desire to do more, a desire to do different. I really feel like if I lack contentment, if I lack being satisfied with what I'm doing right now, I'm just restless. I'm not settled. I don't feel comfortable. I go home and my wife Marie asks me if I had a good day with a look on her face that makes me think I look like I just ran somebody over with my car, which is not the case. You just go home feeling restless, you know. And then life impacts that, whether it's kids, whether it's family, whether it's just life. All of that mixes together, and all of a sudden, it makes this feeling of restless, this not feeling content, even more of a real thing to you. So, I want to tell you all a quick story. I worked at a company straight out of school for a while, and nepotism was a big deal there. There was someone that got escalated into a position of leadership very quickly, and this is a funny story, somewhat uncomfortable, but I figured it was a pretty funny picture to share. So one of the first things this person did was say, hey, you know what, we got to upgrade our bathrooms. Our bathrooms aren't nice enough. They need to be fancier. Customers come in. Customers want to feel like they're stepping into something nicer. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Like that. And this is an engineering company. So the design was a bunch of guys like me that don't really do a great job with that. That's not my strengths. And so this person brought some chops. And so when it was done, we went into the bathroom. There wasn't a lot of conversation about it. There wasn't anything that made you felt like, hey, this is going to like align with the vision of the company. We went in there and it was done. Mind you, it was done. The money was spent. We had customers coming in. We walked in there and the floors were made of black slate, shiny, mirrors. So I know this is going to be recorded. Let's keep this internal. But you're using the restroom and you look down and there's the other person. That's exactly what it was. Lack of contentment, restless. You can cut that. Lack of contentment, restless, and not the healthiest of decisions, right? So, again, and just so y'all know, I've got some notes here. So if I'm looking down, it's not because I'm looking for my margarita. It's because I want to make sure that I stay on task. I know exactly where that is. So, contentment. Change is fun for me. I like change. I think change keeps things interesting. Change is fun. You know, I tend to always ask myself, like, what else is out there? Change and contentment, and it's not just work. It's personal. It's what you find as interests for your hobbies outside of work. Your career, do you like the way you're heading? Are you curious about something else? And I did, by the way, plan this a while ago. So change and contentment don't always go together. Like, would y'all agree with that? It's very difficult to find contentment and to also be excited about change. You're curious about what else can I do, but you find yourself not content, not always happy. So that can be, at least in my mind, something that's a challenge. It's been a challenge for me. So I think it's healthy to imagine the future. I think it's healthy to imagine what can be. I think it's healthy to think through what I want this part of my life to look at. And I'm going to talk about that here in a moment and a bit more. But I want to ask a question, and then I want to talk it through here in the next few minutes. And that question is, how can I be satisfied and, so be satisfied is contentment, be satisfied and satisfy that gut desire that there's that want to do something more. So did y'all follow me there? how can me have that want to, and to be satisfied and to be content, because those two things seem conflicted sometimes. So, first, you may ask yourself, well, shouldn't I just be happy where I am? Isn't it not okay for me just to be happy? And if I don't just feel happy about where I am right now, is there something wrong? Like, is there something wrong with me because I'm not happy where I'm at? And I'm going to emphatically say, absolutely not. Absolutely not. If you're not happy with where you are, let me rephrase that. If you're not completely content on where you are right now, I think that's a healthy thing. I think it's admirable, and I want to always want to pursue and to learn and to do something different and to find new ways to screw up, which I've said a bunch in our family meetings. I think that is okay. And for me personally, I go back to a story in the Bible in Luke, the parable of the talents. Are y'all familiar with that? Very famous story, parable of the talents. Basically, this ruler gives a dude 10 talents, another dude 5 talents, another dude 2 talents. The dude that gets the 5 and the dude that gets the 10 go do something with it, and they return. The person that had a 2 just put it into the ground. They were content. They didn't strive. They didn't take a risk. They didn't do nothing. And the ruler said, "Hey, great job, 10 and 5 talent person, homie. 2 talent that buried into the ground, didn't take any risk, didn't do anything. Not so good. Evil, I'm paraphrasing a bit. But the point is, what's that? This is the Living Bible translation, right? Yeah. But the point is, for me, spiritually, personally, professionally, I'm okay, and I think it's healthy for us to want to grow, to want to invest in ourselves, to not want to stay stationary, okay? And as I talk about one other item on that question of both being content and wanting more, I'm going to talk about a few things that I do practically to kind of work through this in my head. So I think it's admirable, and I think it's healthy to want more. So we've kind of established that it's good to want more. Second, we tend to get restless where we are, and when you get restless, you fall into traps that aren't always healthy for where you are in that moment. For me, I tend to be a worrywart. I'm a worrier. Marie has all the time to say, "Don't worry about it, we'll be fine." I'm like, "No, I got to go make a spreadsheet." And you're like, whatever it is, a worrier, okay? And for me, that's not healthy. For me, I tend to make risk-adverse decisions whenever I worry instead of chillaxing, maybe taking a few minutes away, and find myself, force myself, encourage myself to do healthy things. And I'm going to talk about what a few of those healthy things are. Some of them we do naturally, and some of them are a struggle. But restlessness, some call it bored, others call it different things, and this does impact different areas of our life. It's not just work. It's not just work. It's other areas of our life where we feel restless, we feel unsettled. Some people, it's minor things, other people, it's major things. For me, one of those things is cars. I drove a jalopy minivan with almost 200,000 miles on it, which I'm very proud of. It's a great car, but always unsettled when it comes in. This is me, minor thing, okay? So depending on what that is for you, it has major implications on your life and minor implications on your life, okay? Car, minor, right? Your relationships with others, your professional life, those can escalate it into more major bits, right? So we cannot ignore, and I would encourage you, don't ignore those parts inside of you where you feel restless, you feel unsettled, and you really don't know what it is. You really can't put a finger on it, but it's there. And if you ignore it, at some point you're gonna go home or you're gonna be at work and you're gonna rationalize in your head, I gotta change something. All right? And a lot of times that's just that restlessness not being directed in a direction that is healthy for you. All right? So we'll talk about what we can do here in just a moment. So depending on the category, major or minor implications on your life. So what are some things we can do? What are some thoughts that we can have to not ignore that feeling of restlessness while also finding contentment so we don't go home miserable? It's so easy for us to do both of those things. For me, one word comes to mind, and that is impact. It is impact. And I know that's a vague word. It is a vague word. It can mean a lot of things. Impact or personal impact. Impact is the key, I think, because we are a group of people. You and your relationships, whether it's a spouse, whether it's your buddies, the impact that you have on each other is substantial. You make each other feel certain ways all the time, and most of the time we don't even know how we make others feel. We think we know. Impact is hard, but whenever you choose to focus on how you impact those around you, the result can be very fulfilling. And for me, whenever I get restless, when I find myself beginning to worry, this is where I go. I'll tend to listen to this guy more than I will try to find my own answers. I'll tend to listen to Marie, listen to what she's saying, instead of trying to have my own answers. Sometimes I'll listen to my kids when they're driving me crazy. I'll listen to my 5-year-old boy to hear his heart, even though sometimes it doesn't make sense, instead of me trying to have all the answers. I really focus on how can I make an impact on that individual. I just mentioned work, I mentioned relationships, I mentioned my kiddos. The impact that we can have on those around us by listening first, that for me can bring contentment in those relationships. It can lessen that restless feeling that's natural for some of us, because now you're not the only one that has to have all the answers. You're not the only one that has to. You're not the only one that has to solve the problem. As you think about where you want to go personally and where you want to go professionally, look at the people that you work with. Look at the people that you choose to hang out with outside of work. Who do you choose to work? Who do you like to work with, and who do you enjoy hanging out with the most? Is it those that you can take or leave, or is it those that you feel like up your game, those that you feel like listen to you, those that feel like they contribute, those that feel like they give more than they ask you in return? The answer is kind of obvious, right? It's the latter, right? Can I get some head shaking, or is it the first? I think it's the latter. So choose impact. Choose impact. Choose the way that you make somebody feel. Choose the way they feel like you're listening to them or not. Choose that over other things that are less important. And a lot of things follow. A lot of things follow whenever folks see that you impact their lives outside of just what's right in front of you. Sometimes listening to somebody, sometimes listening to what's on their heart, sometimes listening to how they feel about something at work or at home, sometimes that can be more valuable, sometimes that can have a greater impact than you listening to them, waiting for a chance to jump in, and then giving them an answer. That's a personal thing that I work on, is listening more and speaking in answers less. The relationship's deeper, and I can have a greater impact on them. So how can how can I be satisfied, be content, and satisfy that desire for growth? Focus on the impact that you're having on those around you. Growth in your jobs will come. I promise you, growth in your jobs will come. If your focus is on impact on the lives around you, on how you can make those around you feel better about themselves, feel better about their jobs, they feel listened to. Same thing with your friends outside of work. If that's your focus, especially build that discipline in the moment of restlessness and that moment of not being content. If that's your focus and not providing the answers, you're going to go home feeling a whole lot better about yourself than you would otherwise. I know me, if I'm trying to give somebody an answer about their life, or I'm trying to give an answer to someone at work, a lot of times things have answers. A lot of times you can size a breaker, and you know what that breaker ought to be sized, right? That's an easy one. Sometimes you're having to make a subjective decision, all right? And if you make it alone, and if you make your focus just that one answer instead of bringing in others, instead of listening to someone else's opinion that you didn't think may have something good to say, but if you just shut up long enough to listen, you may learn something that you didn't before. And more importantly than that, you've demonstrated and you've made an impact on that person that you value their feedback. And the more you do that, the more you're going to find promotion, the more you're going to find opportunity, the more you're going to find opportunities for leadership, and the more you're going to go home feeling better, being more content. What time is it? 6:20. One of the and this is harder for some more than it is for others. Is, what are some of the other things that you can do on a daily basis to really have a positive impact on others, to find contentment, but to also have that healthy ambition. When you're having an impact on those around you, be brave. Don't be afraid to speak up. And I mean this in a positive way. I mean this in an encouraging way. If you're bold in a healthy way, sometimes speaking boldly and speaking honestly can have a very positive impact on someone's life in that moment. I think sometimes things are put on our hearts that we wouldn't have otherwise thought to say. And I think it's okay to speak those things out. And I'll trust discretion with you guys in how you choose to do that. Something else that I think is a practical thing that we can do is be positive. Be positive. It's especially in the type of work that we do. Man, it is so easy to not be positive. It's so easy to look on the rotten side. We have to face reality. We can't choose to ignore math. We can't choose to say that we have an imaginary 10 engineers sitting on the bench. Am I right? Hey, shout out. So you got it. You got to be practical. You can't lie to yourself. You can't lie to others. But I promise you, you will go home feeling a lot worse, and that ambition in your gut will dry up if we don't have positivity in the workplace, and if you don't have positivity in your relationships. And positivity is not just a sunshine pump thing. It is facing the facts, it's having honest conversations, and it is not taking things personal, even when it's real hard not to resist that temptation. Oh, it's so hard not to fall into that trap. But man, it is important to stay positive even when things are hard. And I tell you this, when things are real hard, when things get really stressful, the way that we choose to react tells us a whole lot about our health as an organization when it comes to contentment and ambition for growth. If we tend to always err on the side of the bad, the negative, even when we have to make hard decisions, that's okay. We can make hard decisions and still be upbeat, okay? But if we find ourselves making hard decisions and then, woe is me, man, that is going to squash our growth. That's going to squash that ambition inside of some of the people inside the organization. It's going to squash it real good. Those folks are not going to go home feeling content with where they are in that moment, because after all, contentment is just a bunch of micro slices of our days, right? Happy this day, not happy. Happy this day, not happy, right? And then there's this continuum that happens day after day after day. And so after 6 months, you have this story to tell over the past 6 months. Was it a good 6 months? Was it a bad 6 months? So let's stay positive. It's a discipline. Positivity, for some people, I get it. It's easier to stay positive than others because that's how you're wired. That's all right. But positivity is still a discipline. April's over there smiling. It's easier for others to be positive. And I do believe that that's a gift, right? Like some people have gift in other areas. I do believe that it's a gift, but it's also a discipline, okay? Had one more about phone went asleep. I think I'll stop there. Contentment in growth, contentment in ambition, man, that's tough. It's real tough. Don't ignore that restless feeling in your gut. Don't ignore it. Talk about it. Be brave. Stay positive. Don't be afraid to talk to someone that you consider to be a friend. And don't shy away from wanting more. don't shy away from speaking that out too. Speaking that out. I'll tell you a funny story real fast about what I think to be the power of actually speaking things out. And actually, I'm not talking about any voodoo or anything. I do believe that if you think something's important in your life, you're going to change your behavior, and your outcome is probably going to change because of that, right? Do y'all believe that? Like, if you think that health is important, you're going to probably do things to make yourself healthier. If you want to be a professional gamer, you're probably going to buy a gaming rig and do that a bunch. It works for every part of life. But a quick funny story, I was playing Settlers of Catan with family. Has anyone played that game in here? Fantastic game. Dice game, strategy, etc. But I kept calling out sevens. Nathan. Like 4 or 5 times in a row, just calling it out. It was all random luck, but I fooled them for a little bit, Stay positive, be bold, don't ignore that restless feeling in your gut, and be okay, and be brave about speaking out where you want to be, what your ambition is, where you want to be personally and professionally. If you do those things, you're going to go home more content, more happy most days than you will the other. I promise.